Hello, welcome. This is the Half and Half podcast. This is Clay, the person who is talking right now, and there's also another person here. His name is Nicolas. He's going to talk now.
Hello. Welcome to the Half and Half podcast.
Yep. To the millions of people who are listening right now, this is our podcast that we talk about.
You've all been waiting for.
Yeah, I know the demand has been quite crazy for all these years, but we finally caved in and did it.
We thought we have the time, and we're going to give the fans what they want.
Yep. Secret is we don't have the time, and no one's asked for this.
We are doing this mainly for ourselves. So what we're wanting to do with this podcast is it's going to be a rereading of the Half and Half binder, the first one. Currently, we've rebooted some stories and in the progress of starting a second binder, but the first binder is all of our original stories, our oldest ones. Clay, how long ago did we start Half and Half?
Let's say almost 10 years ago now. It'll probably be 10 years ago next year.
Oh.
Like it was in April of last year. Or, no, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Time is elusive.
I found a paper here, and it does actually say in the introduction of the binder, April 15th, 2014. So.
And that's just a guesstimation that I made a year after we started, because honestly, I don't remember when we actually started, but I just was spitballing when I wrote that. So
I don't know about the month, but I think the year is accurate.
Yes. So regardless, whenever we started, by next year it will be 10 years at this.
Yeah, which is actually crazy. I would have never thought that we would still be making these comics 10 years later, but that's pretty cool.
We've been through some rough patches, but we're here now. That's all that matters.
It's had its dry moments, but right now, I would say we're the busiest we've ever been with making comics.
Yep.
Avengers is back, and I know you've got multiple stories you're working on the side. I've got multiple that I'm working on. Nate's been thinking about some. If we could get Gage to do some more, that would be awesome. So,
and these are all people that the audience knows.
Yeah, so these are other Half and Half writers, and we hope to have them on the podcast sometime when their stories pop up.
Indeed.
So the story that we are going to be reviewing today, or rereading, is the OG of the binder. And so, Clay, do you want to share how this all started? What you remember?
So, of course, Nicholas, thank you for asking. This is Mr. Hamburger Takes a Trip. And, before this, we were not newbies to the comic game at all. I made comics for years before this. We didn't start these until, 7th grade, so junior high. All throughout elementary, we had other comics, but we never really established. We were separated in those younger years because the elementary teachers didn't want us together because we were just two rambunctious little boys who, once we matured, we could actually be in the same classes together, and which was bad for the teachers because instead of paying attention, we made comics. So
lots of them.
Yes, this first comic, I don't even think it was intended to be a half and half comic. Really just an experiment, some would say. The opening panel doesn't even credit Nicolas. Something that I still do to this day. So, as we can see, Clay presents Mr. Hamburger Takes a Trip. And something that's different with this comic than most others, we did 2x2 panels instead of whole lines. Things were weird back in that day.
Actually, I think it's the only comic we did that.
Hmm.
We quickly saw the flaws in two
Yeah.
pictures.
If only we could have seen the other flaws that we will touch upon later on.
There are many.
There are many, many flaws. But as for the beginning of the story, it really takes off in a thrilling and exhilarating way where one day Mr. Hamburger decided to take a trip. As you can see with him standing in this blank, empty wasteland, staring at this very realistic airport, which is just a building with the word airport on it. Yep, no
Mhm.
other indication that this is an airport, but you know it is because it has the word airport on it.
And just like that, that is the last of the dialogue in this comic.
Yep.
That the
You
first and
know, I'm
last.
a firm believer in show, not tell. You know, it's a more effective story structure.
Yeah, this is kind of like a silent film. So then after that, we see Mr. Hamburger is in this airport. It's just another blank room, but you can tell it's an airport because there's a sign that says Africa, Paris, and Hawaii.
Nope. Those are definitely three locations that exist.
Yes, we know he's going to one of them. Next, we see him in a line of people. He's the only one with his suitcase in the line.
Probably because people in this world just like the loiter around the old building within miles. It just so happens to be an airport.
Yeah. So he's standing at the stairs with an arrow pointing up, which is him boarding the plane.
See, I'm glad Nicholas could explain this for me because I just assumed that was an escalator, but now all these years later, I know that those are the stairs that lead to the plane.
It's a good thing we're doing this.
Good thing we're really brushing up on old topics that never be reiterated upon unless we revealed this. So oh golly, that Mr. Hamburger, he decides to board on the plane as we can see in this next exhilarating image. Even without hands, he can somehow carry his suitcase up, and that really shows you the potential Mr. Hamburger has. He might have some mild form of telepathy to just carry magical items with his mind. But see, he is, and then with that, he's boarded the plane. And the other passengers, they are just like ticked off that they're on the plane right now. Like this is the last possible thing they want to be doing right now. But why are they on the plane? Who knows? They're probably mad because of the prices, airline tickets,
Maybe the layover.
the layover. Where are they going? Who knows? We'll find out in this next panel.
He got a window seat
Yeah.
and a whole seat just for his luggage. We never see what was in his luggage, but he kept it close to him. He's the only one to keep his luggage with him this whole time.
Yeah. You're supposed to put your luggage in those little spots above the seat. But
Mm-hmm.
this really shows a lot about Mr. Hamburger's personality. He's a bad boy. He doesn't follow the rules. He plays by the toot of his own horn.
In a cute way.
Yeah, in a cute way. It's really endearing of him. It's like people are like, "Oh, that Mr. Hamburger, what a lovable scamp he is."
There's possible sequel to what is in the bag because he's keeping it close. No one else has their bags close. There's something important in there. Anyways, we see the plane is landing now, and next he's walking out in some tall grass, still with his bag, and that is the end of the second line.
Wow. So far, this story has had a lot of ups and downs. I personally have been on the edge of my seat this whole time. Have cried twice. I think I should be able to make it through this next spot. So now we've actually solved the mystery of what was in Mr. Hamburger's suitcase because it appears he has a camera.
True.
This one scene right here really shows a lot about Mr. Hamburger's personality. He's an endearing photographer. He spent hundreds, maybe even close to thousands of dollars to go on this expedition. No, he went all the way to Africa to take pictures of the wildlife. He loves his work and he's willing to put in the dollars. But unluckily for him, he seems to be caught off guard by a lion. And he drops his camera in horror. What will happen next?
Well, he runs off so fast that his legs are spinning, and we see the lion just about grabs him. And in the next square, it still about grabs him, but he jumps into a puddle of water and just escapes the lion.
Mm-hmm. This is like Bear Grylls survival level right now. Mr. Hamburger really probably is one of the most complex characters we've ever created. So now he's in the water, doesn't need his hands, only uses his feet, mainly because he doesn't have hands. But the amount of strength he must have in his feet to swim like that is amazing. But what's this? When he thought he was in the clear, an alligator appears. Oh, this sure is rough for Mr. Hamburger. What will he do?
If you were to run into in the African savannah a lion or an alligator, which would you rather run into?
I'm not sure, but I do know for a fact that I would have Mr. Hamburger on my side because he's definitely the right person to know in situations like this. He'd get us out of there, and I trust him with my life.
Well, he does get out of this one. He jumps on the alligator's nose, and it launches him out of the water. It had a very easy shot at eating him, but it launched him instead. Out of the water, back into the tall grass by an antelope. He lost his hat from this jump, and I don't think he gets it back. Doesn't look like he reclaims his hat for the rest of this story.
Crazy that you say that, because in the very next panel, the mysterious hat that we have just mentioned comes back and bonks him on his little noggin. What an unfortunate series of events that have transpired here. Uh, what could make this any worse?
But he doesn't keep it.
Yeah.
Well, probably because he's too shocked. He's
Yeah.
very frightened now at a human that he's fallen in front of.
And I'd like to mention, to scale, we've established that Mr. Hamburger is roughly the size of a normal human being, but as we look in this comic, those are some pretty large legs. So this is most likely
True.
a giant human, and not just a normal giant human, a hungry giant human.
Somehow there's been a change in the size of.
This is what people in Africa are like. Like if you go to Africa, everyone there is 50 feet tall.
Yeah, it has totally freaked him out, and he's running again. He's already run from a lion and alligator. The antelope didn't scare him, but
Scared me. Cried a little bit.
now his third encounter, giant human, and so he runs away again.
Just a bad series of events. But, he's a quick thinker. He's a sharp one. As soon as this giant man is caught off guard, he swiftly makes an evasive maneuver and turns around and runs the other way.
And he runs and runs until he reaches a cliff. A huge cliff overlooking some trees, those big African trees, and a huge waterfall. And that is the end of Mr. Hamburger Takes a Trip.
Mm-hmm. What happens? What happens next? Will we ever find out?
I mean, it's been 10 years, and
we've never got any closure on what has happened to the titular Mr. Hamburger. I think he survived.
I mean, there was nothing coming after him at that point, so he doesn't have a canon death.
Yeah. Maybe after, I think this is kind of like one of the greatest stories told at all time. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have a definite ending. It's up to the viewer to decide what happened. You could think, oh no, Mr. Hamburger he's done. He's doomed for. He jumps off the cliff. No other option. He decides to not let these creatures who have been terrorizing him win. And he jumps off and takes his own life. But in another way, you could also see it as Mr. Hamburger has escaped from these creatures, and he's just taking a moment to sit down and relax and enjoy that even though in this crazy world we live in full of hatred and crime, there's still beauty in this world, and he sits at the edge of the this cliff just to admire this beautiful tree in front of him. So I think it's up to the viewers to decide
Mhm.
what really happened, and I think there's beauty in that.
And that's what we intended all those years ago.
Yeah, that's what there was a reason we didn't finish
We
this.
wanted people to think. So do you remember anything about making this comic at that 2014 time?
Nope. It's all pretty much a fever dream.
I have a very vivid memory of working on this comic actually, and it was
Was it in Mr. Putt's class?
what was Mr. Putt's class, and I, I feel like we started this comic during lunch, and Mr. Putt's class was right after lunch, and so I remember working on it in his room, and it was the start of a new class because you and I got sat by each other, which was perfect for making comics because we could just hand it to each other through the whole class, not have to get up or wait till passing time. So I remember us being right by each other, and this was prime time to make a comic.
Yep.
It was also, it felt like, what are we doing? We're drawing in
This is
class,
unheard of.
and we're sitting next to each other. We can just, it was very easy,
Yeah.
even though it felt like we were doing something.
And I wonder why I was failing all my classes until 10th grade.
It's all here.
Yep. But yeah, I feel like we pretty much summed up the story of Mr. Hamburger Takes a Trip today.
Mhm.
It's really a philosophical journey, if you will, to of the human psyche. I'd say it's probably up there with some of the greatest stories ever told or written on pen and paper.
It's iconic in the half and half world.
I think it's simple in its complexity, but complex in its simplicity. It really, it. I feel honored to have a part in writing one of the greatest pieces of literature.
Hmm. And it's not the last time that we'll see Mr. Hamburger either. He will make some small appearances throughout some other stories.
So Nicholas, as a one closing thought before we finish up, in our new soft rebooted universe, where do you think Mr. Hamburger lies?
Well, it depends on how you view that this story ended. Because if he jumped to his death, then he would think he's done. I believe that he was taking a moment to catch his breath. He's escaped from all these different things. And while he was catching his breath, he looked up and saw the huge canyon that was in front of him and waterfall and remembered why he went on this trip. It was to capture the beauty of Africa. So I think Mr. Hamburger is still traveling, and I'm thinking he's wealthy. He wears a top hat. And he was on trip to Africa, so he's wealthy. I still believe he gives off that Mr. Monopoly vibe, or that Mickey Mouse vibe. He probably knows them.
Probably invested in crypto.
Was crypto around in 2014?
He invented it.
Okay.
Like he was the guy. Like he was the guy who made Bitcoin.
Well, then he's rich.
I think he used that money to open his own chain of fast food restaurants, and he himself is the mascot of those said restaurants. So you'll just be driving around and you'll pass a Slurpee King and you'll see Mr. Hamburger at front and center. He's like the Ronald McDonald's.
Yeah, he's a living cheeseburger
Yeah.
in the United States. He is nothing but rich.
Hmm.
Where do you think he is at this point?
He's he's probably like working with Elon Musk to colonize Mars at the moment right now.
Maybe that could be his reboot. Mr. Hamburger Takes a Trip to Mars.
Who knows?
I would love to make that story, actually.
Only time will tell.
We do need a sci-fi story in the binder.
Foreshadowing? Question mark.
If you think we should comment below.
Leave a comment below if you are eager to see what happens in the story of Mr. Hamburger, please comment below. It's burger in time.
Make sure he gets his reboot 10 years later.
It's burger be burg.
All right, so next week, in our next episode, the next story we will be rereading is the very first episode of Defenders, the longest running series in Half and Half. And we knew that we were starting something because it does say by Clay and Nickelby's Half and Half comics.
Indeed.
So by that point, we knew we were started something and we're sticking with.
So as you can see, we found a way to pretty much suck 30 minutes out of 8-panel comic. So buckle in, because
Yeah.
we're getting into the real deal stuff.
We got some double-sided pages coming up.
Yep.
From here on out. So like I mentioned, we have some other authors, writers, creators for Half and Half. And so Clay actually made a contract for them to sign. And so everyone who has made comics for the binder has signed this contract at different times. But some of them include Nate Bartenhagen, Gage Beard, and Curtis Giberson.
Wow.
And I think those are all of our other story writers we've got. So as we come across their stories in this rereading, I hope we can have them on the podcast and they can share some of their stories about making the comics.
Yep. Okay. That's it. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
We're actually talking to ourselves, as you know, because we're the only ones who are going to listen to this. Thank you for listening to this, me from the future, and goodbye.
Goodbye.